Yes, it's true, everyone. San Marino managed to score in 3 consecutive matches for the first time in their history. But no, they will not be in Euro 2024, nor will Erling Haaland and Martin Odegaard, actually. Meanwhile, some Euro mainstays will have to try their luck in a playoff. We'll get into all of this and more in this rundown of who's in, who's out, and who's got a playoff for Euro 2024. By the way, this is obviously not my preview for the tournament. That will come out a couple of weeks before the tournament itself when we know every team that's in it, of course. But I was just going through each team's qualification journey, how they qualified and at whose expense, etc. And I figured, hey, why don't I record it for those interested as well? So let's jump in. As you can see here, here's the list of teams that are definitely not making it to Euro 2024. There are some notable ones in there. For example, Sweden had qualified for every single Euro from 2000 to 2020. That's 6 consecutive tournaments for them, but they're in a bit of an evolution at the moment. Their longtime coach, Jan Andersson, is finally moving on after coaching the national team for 7 years, failing to qualify for the 2022 World Cup as well as the Euro, and with a very talented young crop of players ready to break through, it does feel like the right time for him to move on and allow someone else to sort of usher in this new generation. The Republic of Ireland is going through a dip as well, as they had qualified for 2 tournaments in a row in 2012 and 2016 via the playoffs, but they lost their 2020 playoff and failed to even qualify for the playoffs on this go-around. It was cool seeing North Macedonia at Euro 2020. They nearly made it to the World Cup in 2022 if it wasn't for Portugal in the playoff, but they were unable to find some success this go-around as they always had it tough, with England, Italy, and Ukraine in the same group as them, so they will not be making it. Moldova actually kind of caught my eye in this qualification campaign, as they finished just 1 point behind Poland in their group. In fact, they even beat Poland back in June, then drew them last month. They nearly made a push, nearly. Granted, Poland did have the Fernando Santos tax, so take from that what you will. But for sure, the team that will be the most frustrated with themselves is Norway. And I think that finally people are starting to see the benefit of taking the Nations League very seriously, which I do believe Norway did. I'm not saying they didn't, but I'm just using them as an example here, as a lot of supporters will see it as pointless, but it can be directly tied to qualification chances, so why not take it seriously as a safeguard? Now, as for Norway's qualification campaign, unfortunately for them, with 2 matches remaining, they had to play Spain at home and then Scotland away. They lost to Spain and they drew 3-3 away to Scotland, leaving them 6 points behind Scotland in the final standings. But perhaps one of their biggest failures were their draw away to Georgia, and of course their 2-1 loss to Scotland at home in June, from which they never really recovered from that game. So will we see Haaland and Odegaard and the boys at a major tournament in the future? You'd like to think that continuing on this trajectory, it's inevitable, but to not be able to make it into the Euros, even with the expanded format, that's not good. But hey, the 2026 World Cup will have even more teams in it as well, so things are looking good for them there, right? Well, 16 places up for grabs, gotta win your group or your playoff. I guess we'll see. I mean, getting ahead of myself here. Qualification for 2026 doesn't start until March of 2025, but yeah, worrying stuff for Norway. I mean, Germany, of course, has qualified as the hosts, though they are in a bit of a weird place right now with the national team. Flick out, Nagelsmann in temporarily. They are underperforming constantly. We still don't know if they have sorted out their striker position. They have Havertz playing left back. Is Füllkrug the answer as the striker? We'll see. No doubt a very talented side, but one that has performed very poorly by their own standards at the previous few major tournaments. Both World Cups were absolutely forgettable, and Euro 2020 wasn't great either, as they were in their final stretch with Jogi Löw, but they don't have that excuse anymore. Albania is back at the Euros. The last time we saw them take part in this tournament wasn't so long ago, at Euro 2016, which was the first and only major tournament that the country had ever qualified for. But they also got their first goal and first victory out of the way as they beat Romania. And you may remember, they made life very difficult for France as well in that tournament, the hosts of Euro 2016, who required goals from Griezmann and Payet from the 90th minute onward. Albania had quite the qualification campaign, finishing ahead of both Czechia and Poland. More on the latter. More on both, actually, later in this video. Austria, under manager Ralf Rangnick, have qualified for their 4th tournament, but their 3rd consecutive tournament. Their first tournament was actually in 2008 when they co-hosted with Switzerland, but their program has continued to improve year upon year, with the expanded format, of course, lending itself well to their cause. more places up for grabs, yada, yada, yada. But still, they have improved their development greatly, with the Austrian Bundesliga making strides, more and more players competing in the German Bundesliga as well. They finished ahead of Sweden by a long shot, losing just once in qualifying to Belgium. And that match was a great one from last month, actually, with Belgium just scraping a 3-2 win over Austria after Amadou Onana was sent off in the 78th minute. Belgium, of course, have qualified for their 7th European Championships now and are in a new era. No more Martinez. He's with someone else, as Domenico Tedesco oversaw their unbeaten qualification campaign where they scored 22 goals and conceded just 4. He isn't married to 3 at the back as Martinez was with Belgium, though he has definitely played with formations to try to find the best shape for this new generation. Well, Vertonghen is still in there, so not completely new, but transitioning. Lukaku with 14 goals, by the way, an absolute demon in the qualification stages and setting a new record for qualifying goals, so congrats to Big Rom. Czechia, these guys always show up when it comes to the European Championships, don't they? I mean, they won it as Czechoslovakia back in 1976, and they're right up there when it comes to making tournaments upon tournament, as this will be their 11th if you count the Czechoslovakian qualifications as well. This is their 8th consecutive tournament, and they got there by winning or a do-or-die match at home against Moldova, winner moves on situation, and they got a 3-0 win. And they did it without a few players such as Soufal, due to him and a few of the boys staying out all night at the disco and then getting sent away from the national team. Denmark, a team that makes my heart sink sometimes, especially during qualification. And they had a very, very disappointing World Cup 2022 after nearly making the final of Euro 2020. Now, Euro 2020 saw them start the tournament with trauma. And thank God Eriksen survived that. I get chills thinking of watching that game live. But then they rallied. At the World Cup, a very poor showing from them, finishing at the bottom of their group behind Tunisia, Australia, and France. So they certainly can only go up from here. They were dominant in qualifying, finishing first, and that came after a match day 2 surprising loss to Kazakhstan, 3-2. Now with Højlund in there, let's see. Speaking of being great in qualifying, England are always solid in the qualification campaigns, but the difference with them lately has been that they have also reserved some good performances for the major tournaments as well. They made 4th in 2018. They were the finalists in 2020, losing in a shootout after playing that entire tournament at home. But they followed that up with a great tournament in Qatar as well, with finalists France being the team to stop them in the quarters. Again, solid from England. Speaking of France, along with the aforementioned Belgium and a team we'll get to later, they were part of a group of 3 that booked their place at Euro 2024 first, after defeating the Netherlands 2-1 on October 13th. France have made every single European championship since 1988, so they're on a great run and will look to continue their superb tournament performances. A final in 2016, a win in 2018 at the World Cup. They were eliminated in a shootout in the round of 16 in Euro 2020, and of course, lost the World Cup final in a shootout as well. Great tournament team, even though I still think Deschamps' 11 years at the helm is a bit too long. You can expect them to be another force in this tournament after they finished ahead of the Netherlands, whom they beat twice. Oh, and they beat Gibraltar 14-0, which is a new record. Here's an exciting team, Hungary, led by Dominik Szoboszlai, but teaming with other talents as well. They have now qualified for their 5th European Championship across their entire history, but what will be their 3rd consecutive tournament, which, as we said about Austria, of course, the expanded format helps in this regard, but they also are improving as a nation, as evidenced by Szoboszlai. They topped a tricky group ahead of Serbia and Montenegro. Those are separate, by the way. This isn't 2006. And Hungary didn't lose a single match. 5 wins, 3 draws. Marco Rossi is doing great with the group of players. Also, Szoboszlai downed that shot like it ain't no problem, man. Well, it was only a small problem. Just a little wince there. Light. Italy, the defending champions, they have picked up a habit of making qualification difficult for themselves when it probably shouldn't be. That said, almost an immediate reaction, or, well, actually, to throw in here, at least this time it was not as if Italy had an easy group, with 3 teams in England, Ukraine, and themselves, all nations that you would expect to make the final tournament. It came down to the final match as well, with Italy looking quite shaky against Ukraine at times, but in the end, that 1-1 draw with Ukraine that was played out in Leverkusen was enough for Italy to finish ahead of Ukraine. They beat them in the previous leg, superior goal difference there. Quite the scare though, with that late penalty shout for Ukraine. Cristante was a very, very lucky boy as he went in clumsily on Mudryk. My assumption would be that the referees thought that Mudryk left his feet before the contact, but I don't know, man. It looked like a penalty to me. Netherlands, as we mentioned a couple of times already when speaking about France. Yes, they are back in the Ronald Koeman era once again, aren't they? And he was actually looking fairly decent with them prior to leaving for FC Barcelona. Not perfect, but decent. And then the Netherlands getting taken over by Frank de Boer for Euro 2020, a man who simply cannot be trusted if you want success. He's great for an early sacking though, isn't he? But like their group mates France, they also had a round of 16 exit at Euro 2020 and fell to Argentina in a shootout at the 2022 World Cup. They're a team that is kind of in transition as well, but certainly have a lot of talent, enough to do some damage at this tournament. Portugal, a team that always seems to get the better of the Netherlands and have perhaps the most dominant qualification campaign of any nation in European qualifying under Roberto Martinez, with 10 wins from 10 for the first time ever, 36 goals scored and 2 conceded. Now, you're probably thinking, hey, Adrian, why aren't you more excited by this? I mean, I actually am quite excited because under Fernando Santos, there was often some difficulty in qualifying that was excruciating to watch at times. Martinez, he gets a great check mark for avoiding that. However, you got to also look at the group that Portugal was in. It was their easiest in some time, with all due respect. They finished 8 points clear of Slovakia, followed by Luxembourg, Iceland, who are not the same team from 2016, considerably worse, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and finally Liechtenstein. You see what I'm saying? But all things considered, I'm happy with how that went. Hey, they could have done the typically Portuguese thing and find a way to make it complicated for themselves, but with Ronaldo happy in Saudi Arabia and scoring regularly again after he wasn't playing very well in 2022, they're looking good. Speaking of Ronaldo, he'll be playing in his 6th Euros, and the dude already has the record for the most appearances and goals. Romania are back once again. Quick, name a Romanian player besides Radu. Now, name one. 1, 2, 3. Name a Romanian. Now, that was more of an exercise for myself, more than anything, because as I was writing this, I couldn't think of a single outfield player. So shame on me for that, but I will certainly get acquainted with that nation prior to the tournament. All of it, the entire nation. This is their 6th tournament as they missed out on 2020, but they were there for 2016, like I said. For them to finish ahead of Switzerland without a single loss, bravo to their coach, Eduard Jordanescu. Scotland have qualified once again for just the 4th time in their history. Of course, Scotland made it into this competition for the 2020 version, but prior to that, we hadn't seen them since 1996 in ye old England. And it's not as if they have had an easy run of it. They were in a group with Spain and Norway, and they finished ahead of that very, very talented Norwegian side. And by the way, I am here to collect some credit after tweeting this over a year ago, only for him to bag, 7 goals in this campaign? Granted, he played as a striker as a kid, so it's not as big brain as you would think. Serbia, mia cara, te prego salva-me tu. That was for the Serbian Italians in the audience, of which I'm sure there are a ton. But anyway, Serbia have made World Cups fairly regularly of late, as they are a nation that consistently is producing some great talents. However, the Euros have been harder to come by for Serbia, as this is the first time they have qualified as Serbia and not as part of FR Yugoslavia, since they did so in Euro 2000. So yeah, this is the first time that we'll see Serbia on their own in a Euro tournament. Like I said, plenty of talent in this team, and they can certainly cause issues for many top sides, as they have done many times. You know what? It was a similar story for Slovakia, as they had previously made the tournament as part of Czechoslovakia, but only as Slovakia for the first time back in 2016. They finished behind Portugal, the only team they lost against during their qualification campaign, 5 points ahead of 3rd place Luxembourg. It was a banner year for Luxembourg, surely one of their best qualification campaigns, and Slovakia finished ahead of them. Slovakia are treading in the right direction, man. This is 3 consecutive European championships for them. And by the way, Marek Hamšík was still part of this side, despite retiring at the end of last season, but only in an emergency nature back in June of 2023. He made his return to the national team that month and got an assist to boot, just 2 appearances for him, and he was great in both. But beyond that, Slovakia ended with the exact same stats as their Euro 2016 campaign: points, goals scored, wins, goals conceded, you name it. They were consistent and got the same. Guys, we have a country who has confirmed their spot at the Euros for just the 2nd time in their history: Slovenia. This is only their 4th international tournament, including World Cups, of which They last qualified for the South Africa World Cup in 2010. The last Euro they made, 2000. So we're happy for the people of Slovenia. And they got there in the end by beating their qualification rivals in the group, Kazakhstan, 2-1, as the two Benjamins scored. Benjamin Sesko with the opener and Benjamin Verbic with the winner. So we'll get to see Jan Oblak at a major tournament. This is great. Spain are in Spain without the S after it was announced this week that Gavi had torn his ACL and will be out not just for the season, but likely won't be able to recover in time for Euro 2024 next summer. At least that's what they're saying right now. Hard to make a comeback in that time frame with that kind of injury. It would be pretty miraculous. They had just one loss throughout this campaign, that being a 2-0 loss to Scotland at Hampton Park. But other than that, Luis de la Fuente's side have been great at scoring goals. Their squad is trending a bit younger now. Pedri, Lamine Yamal definitely helped to bring the age down, but still, you're seeing a younger Spanish generation now. As mentioned when we were speaking of Romania, Switzerland may have finished second, but they're still in this thing, having qualified with a draw against Kosovo recently. They finished off the job with a match remaining still, so shout out Switzerland, who have been major tournament mainstays, it feels like. They missed Euro 2000 and Euro 2012, but other than that, they have been there and have been in the knockout rounds of the World Cup for 3 consecutive tournaments as well. So Switzerland are a team you can rely upon to develop great talent and make decent runs in major tournaments. Remember, they knocked out France last go. The old fellas like Xhaka and Shaqiri are still involved and prominently at that. There are some exciting youngsters coming through for Switzerland as well, such as Okafor for one, Zeki Amdouni, Arden Jashari, etc. Turkey, the team that absolutely pranked everybody during the previous Euro. Almost everybody had them as a dark horse, myself included, which made sense given their impressive qualification campaign. You know what they did to France, only for them to absolutely collapse and do nothing in their group. But they did well in this campaign, as they did in the previous, with that win against Croatia, and their second meeting helped them to make their future into their own hands. Wales, a team that was fighting for their life in this group. Montella took over as the new manager of this Turkish national team in September, which was kind of confusing. I know he coached in Turkey, but still kind of confusing. But what did he do upon getting the job? That 1-0 away win against Croatia, and then 3 days later, they beat Latvia 4-0 and guaranteed their qualification. Interesting team once again, but I have trust issues now. We're going out of alphabetical order now, just to annoy you. But with good reason, as the final team to qualify directly into the tournament was Croatia. They defeated Armenia 1-0 on the final day of qualifying to book their place, meaning they have qualified for every single tournament since 2004. That's 6 in a row. Tournament kill streak for them. And no doubt they will once again find a way into the knockout stages and hey, probably make a decent run. They're them boys. Even if they are unconvincing, you can never count out Croatia. And perhaps Luka Modric's final major tournament. And now to the playoffs, where there is confusion abound, but this is where we will get our final 3 combatants for Euro 2024 in Germany. Some of the confusion is down to the playoffs still needing to be drawn. You know, it's going to look very confusing when I show you what it looks like. But the draw will be tomorrow, Thursday, November 23rd. But here's what we know, at least as far as the teams that will be in the draw. Georgia, Luxembourg, Greece, Kazakhstan, Israel, Iceland, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Finland, Ukraine, Poland, Estonia, Wales. So 12 teams divided into 3 mini UEFA Nations League style tournaments, essentially just 2 semifinals and then the final in each of the different paths. In Path A, the first path, we know for sure that Poland is playing Estonia, while Wales will be drawn against one of Finland, Ukraine, or Iceland. In Path B, we will have Israel against either Ukraine or Iceland, and Bosnia and Herzegovina against Finland or Ukraine. In Path C, it's already sorted. Georgia will face Luxembourg, while Greece will take on Kazakhstan. The winners of each path will be playing in Germany come June of 2024. There's a few teams that could be playing for the first time in a major tournament. Okay guys, massive video completed. Congrats, you made it. We made it together and should be celebrated for it, right? But seriously, thanks so much for watching through this. It's greatly, greatly appreciated. I'm looking forward to Euro 2024. It's going to be a fun summer. Copa America as well. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. My name is Adrian, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.